So I made a video a couple of days ago ranking every single Tokyo Revengers character. It was a pretty fun video. It's less than 40 seconds long. I think I made my point very clear throughout the video, and you can get the whole idea in under 1 minute. But then I decided to make another video, this time going a little bit more in depth into the analysis. So if you don't want to watch this video and instead would rather watch a much shorter one with pretty much the same outcome, just watch this one instead. Now if you want a more complete explanation, well, this is a video for you. Just a quick shout out to Ed Shinazugawa on X. He was the guy who got the images for the tier list. So let's get into it. To start off, I'm not going to rank all of the characters at once. I'm going to separate them into groups, rank them in each individual group. After I'm done with that, then I'm going to rank them in relation to everybody else. It sounds a little bit confusing, but you get what I'm saying. So I'm going to write all the groups here by order of appearance. So like the first group we ever saw was Mizo 5, which is Takemichi and his friends gang, which is obviously composed of Takemichi, Makoto, Yamagishi, Akun, Takuya. Then the second group we ever saw was Kiyomasa's, which is obviously composed of Kiyomasa, Red, this dude, and this guy, but he's not really, he doesn't count, so I'm not gonna rank them right now. Then we saw Doman, composed of Mikey and Draken and Mitsuya and Chifuyu and Smiley, I'm gonna put Kazutora, Angry, Hakai, Mucho, Peiyan, Pa Chen, and is that everybody? Oh, and Baji. Oh yeah, and Harucho and Yuzuha. Technically, Emma? Nah. I'm not ranking anyone who didn't fought in the show, so no. Mitsuya sisters, Naoto. We'll get there. Oh, and another thing, I'm not going to rank any future version of the characters, so I'm not taking into consideration any Bonten version of the characters. I'm not considering a hypothetical World Heavyweight Champion South. So this is past only. Alright, I think we're done with Toma, right? Yeah. Oh, and nah, you're not going here yet. The next group we saw was Mebius / Valhalla, which I'm gonna put Osanai here. Also these three and Shujihama. Yeah, I think that's it for this group. Then the next one was the Black Dragons, the 10th generation, which was composed of Taiju Shiba, Koko and Inupi, and I think that's it for the 10th generation Black Dragons. The next group was Tenjiku, I believe, and this group was composed of Izana, Madarame, Kakucho, Mochi, the Haitani brothers. Oh, I forgot Angry. Sorry, Angry. So now we have the Three Deities era, which was composed of South, Kawaragi, Takeomi, Keizo, Wakasa. Yeah, I think we're done here. Now I'm gonna rank them inside of each group. I think the Mizo 5 is accurate already. Takemichi is the strongest, then Akun, and then these two are interchangeable. I'm gonna put Yamagishi here because I like his glasses. And Takuya is the weakest of them all. Kiyomasa, again, yeah, I think this is accurate. Kiyomasa is the leader of his little goon squad, so yeah. Then Red because he's the most notable one besides Kiyomasa. And this guy, I don't even remember his name, so yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. Okay, now this one is a little bit controversial to rank, but I'm going to try my best. Mike is the strongest, that's no discussion. The second one is Draken. I think there's also no argue here. Now it gets a little bit tricky. I'm gonna say Angry is the third strongest. He was the one who did the best when Toman fought Tenjiku until he got laid out by my boy Kakucho. Is he stronger than the other division commanders? Yeah. Oh wait, I already put Angry here. I'm sorry. Is he stronger than the other division's captains? Yeah, I'm pretty confident that yeah, he is. When he's crying, he's stronger than any other of these dudes. He became a complete beast during the fight against Tenjiku. And in that moment, I do believe that he became stronger than any other division captain. And also, he was the last guy standing when he and Smiley and Pe went to fight Mikey. Angry was the last one standing. And we could see that it was because he was already in his crying state. So crying Angry is pretty nuts, actually. In fourth place, I'm gonna put Peiyan, actually. He completely just neck diffed, where is he, Madarame right here from the Brutal generation, one of the Heavenly Kings from Tenjiku. And even though, yeah, Madarame is sorta like the weakest one out of Tenjiku, he's still from the Brutal generation. He's a pretty relevant guy. He got absolutely no diffed by Pe. And I believe it was Hakai that said that Mitsuya told him that despite Peiyan being a dumbass, he's much stronger than Mitsuya. And I do believe that the captains are sort of relative to each other. Maybe Mucho is an exception. But taking that into consideration, Pe should be stronger than anybody else after him. And now I'm gonna put Mucho right here. He is the strongest captain out of all of them. That's why Mikey gave him the role of taking care of internal affairs inside of Toman, because he was the strongest one. So yeah, I'm pretty confident in these 5 first here. After that, it becomes quite complicated, because again, I do believe that the captains are kind of relative to each other. So I'm not gonna be too confident on where I rank them, because if I'm being 100% honest, they are all interchangeable. Maybe if you take into consideration that Pa was addressed as the physically strongest one out of all the captains, maybe you can put him above everybody else. But honestly, the captains are all interchangeable between each other. Now we get to Shifuyu, Kazutora, Hakai, Harucho, and Yuzuha. I just remembered that Yuzuha is not actually part of Toman, she just hangs out with them. So I'm not really sure where to put her. I mean, she's definitely stronger than the average Toman member, since she was able to take a lot of hits from Hakai and she actually managed to knock down Inupi. So she's above all the Mizu guys, she's above Kiyomasa and his crew, but in relation to the other captains, I really don't know. So I'm just gonna put her at last, not because I think she's weak necessarily, but just because we don't have too much to go by. As for the vice captains, Hakai, Shifuyu, Kazutora, and Harucho, I believe Hakai is the strongest, but he has a lot of insecurities which nerve him a little bit. So you could also put Shifuyu above Hakai because he has the most amount of feats we've seen. But honestly, they are all interchangeable. Again, the vice captains are all interchangeable, to be completely honest. Really gonna put Harucho as the last one because most of the times we see him fight, he's using some sort of weapon. So yeah, boohoo. Other than that, these 3 are pretty interchangeable in between them. You can use the argument for Kazutora being the strongest out of the 3 because he was a founding member. You can use the argument for Hakai being the strongest because he's the tallest, he's the most physically gifted out of the 3. Or you could use Shifuyu because he has the most experience and the most feats. But I do believe that all of the vice captains are weaker than their main counterpart, with the exception of Angry and Peiyan, because we have confirmation that they're stronger than their captains. Yeah, I think that's about it for Toman. Now we go over to Mebius/Valhalla. Hama is obviously the strongest one here. I don't remember this guy, so fuck you. It's Shuji Hama, then Osanai, then I do believe Kisaki is the weakest, even in comparison to these 2 randoms, because these 2 managed to hold their own against Mikey for a little bit, really little bit. So yeah, I think they should be above Kisaki. Since Kisaki is more of a strategic guy, he's not much for fighting, we don't see him fighting a lot. He's mostly brains above bronze, so physically he should be the lowest here. Now the black dragons, obviously Taiju should be first, and then Inupi. I'm gonna put Inupi above Coco actually, because from the quotes and his feats, Inupi is much more of a fighting type of guy. Even though he's strong, his main attribute is being like really good with money and stuff, so he's not much of a fighter, unlike Inupi. We've seen him fight a lot more. Now Tenjiko, obviously Zana should be first. I'm gonna put Kakucho in second, and then Mucho here. And now this is a bit complicated, these three, because even though Madarame performed the worst out of the Brutal Generation guys, which would put him right here, we don't know how strong the Haitani brothers are individually. Actually, individually they're not that strong. I mean, they got defeated by Mitsuya and Hakai, which is not bad, they're pretty strong, but of course their main strength is attacking 2 versus 1, so maybe individually they're below Madarame, but since they're cooler, I'm gonna put them above Madarame. Now between the two of them, I'm just gonna put Ron because he's the older one, although an argument could be made for Rindo. While Ron mostly attacks with a baton, Rindo uses like some sort of grappling shit, which would make him physically stronger than him, but I'm gonna go with the older brother thing. Now, the 3 deities era. South is definitely the strongest, and then Kawaragi should be the second strongest. I don't think she's weaker than any of these guys. So yeah, it's gonna be South, and then Kawaragi. Now, Takeomi is the weakest out of these 3, the first generation Black Dragons. These 2 are pretty interchangeable because during the time period where they were the biggest gang leaders in Kanto, none of them achieved victory over the other. So I'm gonna put Keizo because he's physically stronger. I don't know, really. You feel free to put either of these guys, whatever you want. But yeah, I think we're done ranking them by groups, so let's start ranking each character in relation to everybody else. Alright, so I made a tier specifically just for Mikey because by the end of the manga, even the strongest guys were not near his level when he has his dark impulses. Not even South, not anybody else. No matter how strong you are, you're gonna get by Mikey. So yeah, he has his own tier. Now for S+ tier, I'm gonna put anyone who put up a good fight against Mikey or who fought someone who put up a good fight against Mikey. So Izana obviously goes right here. South. In Kawaragi, while she didn't fight Mikey, she performed a lot better against South than these 2. So she also deserves S+. Between the 3, I think Kawaragi is the weakest and South is the strongest, since South fought Dark Impulse Mikey and he was trading blow for blow against him, so that's the best feat that any of these guys have shown. And Izana, because he managed to hit Mikey a lot and even blocked a few hits from Mikey. And Kawaragi will be the last, since she didn't really fight Mikey. But she performed really well against South, and while these 2 also fought South, they did as a duo, while Kawaragi did alone, and she did better than these 2. So she shouldn't be in the same tier as these 2. Now, S tier. Yes, Shiba is in S tier. These 2 are not in S tier. Kakucho makes sense. The rest of the Brutal Generation, not really. And I'll explain why later. The first generation Black Dragons, Takeomi was not much of a fighter. He was more like of an advisor to Shinichiro. So maybe he also shouldn't be in S tier, but we'll see about that later. Honestly, Draken should also be S tier because I don't see him losing to anybody down here. So yeah. And also he did quite well against South, even if it was just for a little bit, but he managed to hold his own against South, so that's already impressive enough. Maybe I'll leave him here for now. Alright, now to sort S tier out. Okay, this will be harder than I thought. Hanma should always be below Draken, the way I see it. And some of you might get mad at me for doing this, but Taiju should be the last of S tier. Oh, hear me out, Taiju stands. Hear me out. He has the worst feats out of all of these guys, even including Hanma. Just a quick reminder that Mitsuya was able to hold his own against Taiju, and it was only after Inupi hit him with the metal pipe against his head that Mitsuya couldn't fight back anymore. But just the fact that Mitsuya could hold his own against Taiju, and while Kakucho one-shot Angry, Shifuyu, and Inupi, and Angry is stronger than the other captains, Kakucho should be above Taiju. Hanma was able to hold his own really well against Mikey during the battle of August 3rd. To people who believe that Mikey wasn't trying against Hanma, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because he already knew that Draken got stabbed at this point and Hanma was able to hold him back. I really doubt Mikey would just mess around with Hanma while Draken's life is on the line. But you could also argue that since when Taiju fought Mikey, Baji had already died, so maybe at this point Mikey was a little bit more deadly. But that's going a bit more into speculation realm, because that wasn't Dark Impulse Mikey who fought Taiju. So from what we've seen, Hanma should be above Taiju, and Draken defeated Hanma, so this right here. And these guys were able to fight off South Terrano for a while, which is already a pretty crazy feat. Honestly, to me, it's Kakucho at first. You could argue Draken as first if you consider that since he's the vice leader of Talmon, his strength is only second to the leader. But from the feats we've seen all of these guys do, Kakucho has the best one, from just one-shotting Angry, Inupi, and Shifuyu all at once with no difficulty at all. Then these guys, because they hold off South. But honestly, these three are pretty interchangeable, but I do believe Hanma should always come right behind Draken, and Taiju being the worst of S tier. Now, on to A tier. I'm not gonna rank these guys, and that's because I'm just lazy. Fuck you. Now, onto A tier. Osanai is really hard to rank, and I'll explain why later when we get to the Tomon boys. I'm just gonna leave him here for now, but not because he's the weakest, but because I want to address him later. So, the strongest of A tier. Kisaki shouldn't be here, first of all. Actually, I'm also not gonna rank Takeomi because we didn't see him fight almost at all. Which leaves us with these guys. The Brutal Generation. I think these four are in pretty good order. Actually, I'm gonna make another tier. Wait a second. I already know where this is going. So, here's the thing. The Brutal Generation fellas, they got laid out by the Tomon captains by the time of the last battle, which would put the Tomon captains all above them. We don't know much about Baji since he was dead at this point, so I'm gonna rank him later. But at least Pa, Mitsuya, Smiley, of course Angry, Pe, yeah, I'm gonna rank him later. Hakai and Shifuyu. Shifuyu won against Mucho, Hakai won against Rindo, and Mitsuya won against Ran. So obviously these three should be above these three. The Tomon captains are actually pretty insane, all things considered. And yeah, inside of A+, Angry should be the strongest, and Pe, and these guys are interchangeable. Let's put Pa. Pa managed to take quite a few hits from Mikey, so that's already pretty good. We don't know how quick Mikey defeated Smiley, Angry, and Pe, but we know that Pa tanked a lot, so that's already good enough to put him pretty high. As for these guys, they all performed similarly during the last fight, so I think that's pretty good. Smiley also did good. He traded blows with Mikey, but to me, really, these four are interchangeable. You can put them in whatever order you like, with Angry being the strongest. He was the last one standing against Mikey when him, Pe, and Smiley fought Mikey. So yeah, I think A plus is pretty accurate. Now for A tier, I think these four should be here, right below the A plus guys, because obviously they got defeated by the guys in A plus. Coco and Inupi fought against Keizo and Wakasa. They fought pretty well, but they got defeated in the end, which no shame. These guys are called legends for a reason. They were the strongest gangsters in Kanto in their own era. But it still makes it a bit hard to rank these guys. Now, these four and these two are pretty interchangeable between them. Inupi should always be ahead of Coco, and this order is the correct one for these four. So if you think these two are much stronger than the Brutal Generation, then even though these two lost, they should be above them. If you don't think that, then Inupi and Coco should go lower. But no, I'm gonna put Inupi here, and Coco should be the last one. Mucho should go alongside his buddies in the Brutal Generation. Now, I think he's above the Haitani brothers and Madarame. His position against Mochi is debatable, but I am gonna put him above all the other guys from the Brutal Generation. And why is that, you might ask? Because he's voiced by Daisuke Ono, also known as Erwin Smiso. Now for B tier, I think Yuzuha should be in B tier, simply because I don't see her defeating any of these guys. As for Kisaki, I'm gonna rank him later. Baji is a bit hard to rank because he died really early in the show, so these guys actually got a bit of a boost after the 2-year time skip, so we have no idea how strong he would be in comparison to them. When they were the same age, he was relative to all of them, but by the end of the show, we cannot really rank him. But he's still definitely stronger than all of these guys. Even time skip Haruchu, I would say, because we almost never saw Haruchu fighting without using weapons. And that could be because he's a murderous freak, or it could be because he's a little bitch. So I'm gonna say for now that Baji is the strongest out of these guys. Oh, and I forgot to explain something. I'm ranking these guys by their best forms, excluding their future counterpart. So Baji and Kazutora should be close to each other, because the moment Baji dies is also when Kazutora goes to jail, so they had pretty much the same time to shine, and Baji had the better feats by then. So I think this is pretty accurate. Kiyomasa and his crew are going to D tier immediately. I'm gonna leave Takemichi as the last one, and you'll see why. Now, this will get some people confused, but Akun should go at least the best of A or the worst of A+, because he defeated Madarame while Madarame had the brass knuckles on. And come on, Madarame cannot be that much weaker than these guys. Like, come on. Yeah, he performed the worst in almost all the scenes he was part of, but I really doubt Izana would allow a guy who's absolutely weak to be part of his gang, and especially be a captain in his gang. So come on, Madarame cannot be that weak. Yeah, but I don't see Akun defeating these guys. So yeah, he's gonna go right in front of Madarame actually. A for Akun, yes, that makes a lot of sense. As for the other Mizu 5 fellas, I think they deserve a B spot, maybe behind Yuzuha. Yeah, I would say that. These two are interchangeable, Takuya is the weakest. Do I think they are stronger than Kiyomasa and his crew by the end of the show? Yeah, I do. These guys just completely disappeared by the end of the show. They have almost 0 feats, and these guys got much stronger. I wouldn't be surprised that they grew stronger than these 3. So I'm gonna use the last tier to group the guys I'm not sure about it, but let's start off with Osanai. The problem with Osanai is that he defeated Pa, and Pe was completely in shock seeing Pa getting defeated by Osanai, which means that Pe also could not defeat Osanai. But if that's the case, then Osanai is stronger than all of the Toman captains and their vice captains, which just sounds weird to say out loud. Yes, you can argue that Pe and Pa got much stronger by the end of the series, so by that point they could defeat Osanai, which I think it's the case, honestly. Or else I would have to put Osanai like here, above all of these guys. So I'm gonna put him as the worst of A tier. Now, do I think... Nah, actually, the best of B tier being interchangeable with these two. Do I think he will lose to all these guys above him? Yeah, by the end of the show, these guys would definitely defeat Osanai, and these two are interchangeable with him. So Osanai, Baji, and Kazutora all can be first place in B tier. I'm gonna put Baji because B for Baji, and the rest of the tier is it's pretty accurate, I'd say. Now, Teta Kisaki. He is actually pretty weak. His main attribute is his brain, but he's not a fighter at all. I mean, he did a little bit of fighting during the Bloody Halloween, and he fought against Takemichi as well, right before dying. So I would put him above the average Toman member, but he would lose to anybody else. Now, for Mr. Tokyo Revengers himself, where do I put him? Now, the answer might surprise you. Now, hear me out. This list is based off these characters' strongest forms. And Takemichi's strongest form was when he fought against Dark Impulse Mikey, and he had precognition. He actually had a superpower by that point. He was fighting Mikey, and he was all like, I can see the future! You know? Takemichi basically had the shotting gun. He could predict his opponent's movements. If Takemichi fought anybody else in this list with those powers, he just wouldn't lose to any of them. They would either get tired out, or actually, Takemichi got pretty strong by this point. He punched Kakucho so hard that Kakucho was sent flying. So with the precognition powers, he could very well defeat everybody else below him. So debate me on that one. Yeah, I think I've done a pretty good job ranking these guys. Of course, as I said in my Yujiro vs Guts video, the way you interpret a scene might be completely different from the way I interpret the same scene, which may alter the result. But according to my interpretation, this is the most accurate possible tier list thing. Again, feel free to write down your opinion in the comments on why you disagree with me, on why, I don't know, Kisaki should be above fucking Mikey for some reason. But yeah, that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Watch my other videos if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.